Hello, I'm with Shane Dan Turner, host of tonight's event. Tell me, why punk melts ice?
Well, I mean, it's February in New York City, so that's one reason. It's been so fucking cold out here. So, I literally got placed in the shelter because of the blizzard. But the main reason is because of what's been going on with ICE. The fucking Gestapo we have under this fucking fascist administration. It's been infuriating me the past 2 months, and I've been feeling so helpless to do anything. So I feel like the only thing I can do is just devote my music to it. So, punk melts ice just came naturally, I suppose.
So a lot of people don't know this. ICE was only formed in 2003, so it's less than 23 years old. Do you think ICE should be abolished?
I'm older than ICE.
We managed without ICE during the Cold War, World War II, World War I. We seem to manage pretty well without ICE throughout almost all of U.S. history. What's your thought on abolishing ICE?
Absolutely. I'm older than ICE. Look, I'm a history buff as well. I know full well American history, especially from the last 100 or so years or so. ICE is nothing more than an occupying force at this point, especially under the Trump administration. And at this point, it's lost the trust of the people of the United States. It has to go. It has to be abolished. There's no reforming this. This is just an occupying force. It's clearly not. It's clearly not just going after violent criminals. If it were, we'd be sending in the FBI. If it were, we'd be sending in regular police. They're not doing that. They promise us, we're only going after those who are breaking their visas or whatever. If that's the case, why are they going after asylum seekers in court while they're in court for their asylum cases? Why are they going to people actually trying to get to live their lives? I grew up, I was told, this is America. We're a country of immigrants, we were told. My grandparents on my mother's side came here after World War II. On my father's side, came in at the turn of the century. A lot of people say, they came legally. Nobody in America gives a fuck whether they have the right paperwork or not. Give me a fucking break. No, we call this a land of opportunity. My grandparents came in with less requirements than a lot of these people came in. There's no reason why they shouldn't be considered American citizens. Give them a pathway decision. There's no reason. At the end of the day, it is nothing more than an excuse. Illegal immigrants are nothing more than the new scapegoat. And as we're seeing for the past couple of months, it's been branching out to American citizens. Renee Good, Alex Preddy were American citizens. And according to Trump, he likes to call them domestic terrorists. So domestic terrorists, according to this administration, is just anyone who practices the right of dissent. So no, ICE should be completely abolished, and this motherfucker should be completely removed from office. And he's running out the clock for him to be removed peacefully. It's getting to the point where we may have to, as we like to say in American history, assert the God-given right, as we stated in the United States Declaration of Independence, to throw off such government and create new guardians for our posterity and our security. And by the way, that's in the Declaration of Independence.
Interesting. There's an interesting paradox in the industrialized world where the fertility rate has been plummeting for decades. For instance, in the U.S., the fertility rate fell below replacement in 1972. There are similar trends across the European Union, South America, East Asia. Most of these countries, of which have been longtime opponents of immigration. In the case of, let's say, China and Japan, two countries with some of the lowest replacement rates on the planet, as well as more recently, countries like Germany, Denmark have become opposed to quote-unquote mass immigration. But quote-unquote mass immigration is the only thing that's been keeping their population steady for the past half century at least. That's an interesting paradox, don't you think?
I'm not as informed on that, based off the framing of your question. But I will say this: only a racist gives a damn about mass migration affecting their populace. Only a fucking white supremacist is going to give a damn about a certain type of person coming into their country. They're going to make assumptions about the kind of people that come in and so take over. Nobody should give a fuck. If they're here to work, they're here to survive. And at the end of the day, a border is just a line on a fucking map.
Well, I just find it funny because the population of the U.S. and Canada and England, it would have tanked decades ago if not for immigration. Immigration's the only thing keeping the population of the working age population fluid. I just think it's funny.
You know what's even funnier is that people were making the observation in 2015 when Trump was becoming popular. People made the observation then that Hispanics were the future of conservatism in this country, because most of the people coming from Mexico are more likely to be conservative, more likely to be family friendly, more likely to value hard work. So the fact that Trump did what he did for the past 10 years, using them as scapegoats, is the most utterly ridiculous thing you can think of. Because they're the one population that he and the conservatives should be aligned with, but he's too racist to understand. Myself personally, I'm not a conservative. Myself personally, I don't like kids. I don't want kids. I value my own life too much to want to fuck up a kid, you know? So it's not really so much of a concern for me. I care about personal liberty above all else. And when it comes to ICE, they are an occupying force.
Okay, let's talk about your latest release, the Nightmare EP.
That's not my latest release. Okay. It's my first release.
Oh, okay.
But go ahead.
Thanks for correcting me. Could you tell me about the Nightmare EP? In it, you explore themes of existential dread, the dilemma of the outcast, the motif of the runaway is quite prevalent throughout the album. So what was the thought process behind the Nightmare EP?
Well, you put in some very good descriptors there. I commend you for that. 2 of the songs on the Nightmare EP are going to be part of a future rock opera that I'm writing, which is basically the story of a person who lives in a fascist society, is sent to a concentration camp, escapes, and then joins a partisan group to take down that fascist regime. And the story is basically an allegory for my grandfather surviving the Holocaust, but it's not literally the same thing, of course. It's kind of like it's inspired by V for Vendetta, along with 21st Century Breakdown, etc. So the songs Valerie's Letter on the Nightmare EP was directly inspired by Valerie's Letter, which is a portion of the movie V for Vendetta, where someone in the camps in that fascist Britain, in the storyline, wrote a letter in paper on toilet paper, passed it to the person in the cell next to them, who turned out to be V, and in that letter saying, "This is my story. I'm mostly gonna die here, but take my love and use it to live on, survive, even though I'm not going to." So that was the inspiration for Valerie's Letter. And the next one is Nightmare, the title track, which is literally the track where the person in the rock opera breaks out from the concentration camp and is escaping. Now, initially, I did not write Nightmare for that purpose. Initially, I wrote it in response to nightmares that I was having in my teenage years. I would constantly have nightmares of me running away from something. And I was a growing fan of Doctor Who at the time. And so the verse, "I can see they chasing and shoot at me. They march to the rhythmic beat. They want to force me conformity." That's an allegory for the Cybermen right there. Then One of my proudest lines is in that song. It's the second to last verse, which is, "To be who I am is not a crime to me, but these guys enforce and infringe on my liberty." That right there is, I identify as asexual, I identify as queer, because I've always felt like an outcast for my own desires. And I grew up in an Orthodox Jewish community that always made my desires feel wrong. And they're aligned with this fascist society that also feels that my desires are wrong. Well, I say no, my desires are not wrong. I do not hurt other people. I'm not a rapist, I'm not a pedophile, I'm not a murderer. The stuff that I do in the privacy of my bedroom or in the privacy of the dungeons that I frequent are no one's business but my own. And if I choose to be who I am, I shouldn't be punished for it. I shouldn't be persecuted for it. And neither should anybody else. Now, the third track on the EP I actually released as a single last year in early 2025 is "Let It Be, You Might As Well." That's basically my creed right there. I wrote it while inspired by people like Jim Croce, because Jim Croce wrote a couple of songs about people who valued their own strength eventually being overcome by people who are stronger than them. So I said, you may want to win, but there's always one fool you cannot cheat. You may be big and bad, but there's one fool you cannot beat. Death always wins, so cast aside your zealotry. Basically, just live your life. Be who you are. Don't give a damn about who's stronger. Don't be arrogant. Don't be zealous. Don't care about whose land you're on, because blood is the oldest fertilizer in history. It belongs to all of us.
Okay, you mentioned one quote that I was going to ask you about.
Right.
"To be who I am is no crime to me." I will ask you about a quote from Valerie's letter. "The visage of your life flashes before your eyes." Very beautiful
Visage,
quote.
yes.
Visage.
Yeah, basically, in Valerie's letter, the person, Valerie, I just gave it the name Valerie because I was inspired by Valerie's letter, but in the song, Valerie is thinking back on her life, thinking on who she was and who that made her, and how that's slowly being taken away from her. Is a way for me, as a word, to imagine what it's like to be in a concentration camp. How I'd feel my own humanity being stripped away from me, and as I clung to my own history. There's actually another song that I wrote that's going to be a part of the rock opera that goes into much greater detail. That's a song that comes before Valerie's letter in the rock opera. It's called "Gates of Hell." And in it I say such things as, "They cut your hair and take your skin. They rip out all your teeth. They take your clothes and give you stripes and strip your bones of meat." I say things like, "I'm a doctor, I'm a lawyer, I had a golden reputation, helped people successful, I'm a man of innovation, I'm a mother, I'm a father. I have so many children, I helped them, protect them, I tried so hard to care for them." In that song, it's the inmates clinging to their humanity while it's being stripped of them.
Okay, your sound's very reminiscent of outlaw rock, as I would call it. The Allman Brothers, Johnny Cash, as well as some influences, I would say, from people like Bob Dylan and Pete Seeger. What, in your mind, aligns you with punk?
What aligns me with punk?
Yes.
The fact that I say it does, for one thing. I mean, I am losing my stuff. What aligns me with punk is the fact that I say it does. Believe it or not, I am a huge, even though, you sense the influences of Johnny Cash, Bob Dylan, I don't know about the Allman Brothers. I really haven't listened to them that much, but I am a huge Bob Dylan fan. I am a huge Johnny Cash fan. Johnny Cash and Bob Dylan were the punks of their time. They were 10 years before punk came about. Bob Dylan was punk before anyone else was, because he went electric in the face of a furious fan base. He pissed off his own fan base because he wanted to play what he wanted to play and not what they wanted him to play. He went electric. He decided to go and do his own thing and not be the voice of the generation. And 10 years later, punk became a thing with bands who decided to say, we are going to do our own thing. We're not going to placate the system. We're not going to do what people want us to do. We'll live our own lives in defiance of the system. My entire life has been in defiance of the system. I've never fit into the box. So I've always been the punk. I've always been the outcast. I've always been the one who is never accepted into any circle. So when it comes down to it, I say I'm punk. Believe it or not, this is something that I've been thinking of. It's not just me playing Green Day. It's also the fact that I listen to the Ramones, that I listen to Iggy Pop, that I listen to Blondie, Television, the Talking Heads, Dead Kennedys, the OGs of punk. And not just punk, also goth, post-punk, the Smiths, Susie and the Banshees, The Cure. I'm trying to stand on the shoulders of the giants who came before me. If I can get to a point where somebody's trying to copy me, I'll consider myself as having made it.
Okay, thank you for your time, Mr. Shane Dan Turner.
Enjoy the show.